little late, but I made it. I don't know why I always yawn before the start of the show. I do. I don't know, maybe it's just the time of the day. I guess. Anyway. All right. Hi, Goddess. Thank you for all the blue hearts. Hi, CB. How are you? I'm doing great. How are you? All right. Tonight we are talking about credentials, medical coding credentials, and where to start. So hopefully this will help. This episode was inspired today by another LinkedIn message, and I was so glad because I wasn't really sure what I wanted to talk about tonight. Obviously, I would have had an open chat anyway. Hi, BT. Thank you for joining me. Long time no see. CB says, great. Studying and excited to take my test. Yay. Hi, Marie. Thank you for joining me. Hi, Drea. Thank you for all the blue hearts. Yes, so today's episode was inspired by another LinkedIn message. So thank you to the viewer who sent this in. And they had a really good question about where to start with medical coding credentials. So we're going to go over this. I talked about this a little bit last night on the comparing the memberships for AHIMA and AAPC, because where you get certified or who you get certified through does make a huge difference in how much money you will spend. And so that's I kind of what brought up the question. Hi, Sunny. Thank you for subscribing. BT says, I have an interview, billing interview. I have an interview for billing on Thursday. My work schedule has been insane. Oh, I bet. But on your interview, so I got my fingers crossed for you. That is awesome. Hi, Mist. Hi, Blue. Have a fever and resting, but I'm here. Hey, get fluids, get your rest, and I'm glad you tuned in. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue. I'm a medical coder. Tonight we are talking about medical coding credentials. Where do you begin? I should actually call this part 2 of yesterday's episode, and I will do my best to link yesterday's episode into the description box or up in the little thingy. Probably in the description box, I'll link the other video. Where I was talking about the different medical coding associations, and who you get certified through has a direct impact on how much money you will spend. Yesterday we broke down the math, and it came out to $2,107 if you're going to get certified with AAPC. That is the American Academy of Professional Coders, and that $2,107 includes just one credential. That's the fee and everything for one credential, getting you going for one credential. The total that we came out with yesterday for AHIMA, or the American Health Information Management Association, for one credential was $899. Actually, I forgot to add in the other $100 maintenance, right? No, maybe I didn't. So $899 was what we came out with. And if I did forget to add it in, then it's $999. For one credential for the first 2 years with AHIMA. So that is something that you should know. There is a difference, and it's just breaking down simple math. Yesterday we broke it all down. So I'm going to go ahead and read the message from the viewer, and thank you again. She says, hi, I'm new to your channel, your YouTube channel. I have a question. I'm also a member of AHIMA now. I'm currently watching your YouTube where you are exposing and I kind of laughed when I read that. I was like, that's funny, but it's not like I was just breaking down the math. That's all. And like I said, I'm going to disclaim this whole video too. I am not suggesting one association over the other. I am just simply bringing to you, this is the math. This is what it comes out to, okay? But she goes on to say, you were exposing the different prices for AAPC and AHIMA. My question is, do I need to get the CCA as well as the CCS, or should I go with the CCS? Please let me know. Thank you so much. By the way, I love your channel. Also for AHIMA, is there a way that I can take classes to get certified, or do I find a school on my own and AHIMA is only for the testing? I'm confused. All right, so, okay, so here we go. So the first part of the question is whether she should get the CCA as well as the CCS, or if she should just go for the CCS. You have to understand first what these credentials are. Now, both the CCA, or the Certified Coding Associate, and the Certified Coding Specialist, the CCS, both of these credentials test on inpatient coding and outpatient coding. The difference between these two tests is the CCA is considered the entry-level credential. Now, this says that you are brand new, that you don't have a lot of experience, but that you are competent to code inpatient and outpatient. You know the rules for inpatient coding, for outpatient coding. So you can essentially apply anywhere, right? And that you're able to do this. This test is only 2 hours, okay? And so that's that one for the CCA. The CCS is the gold standard of medical coding credentials. This is the one that most employers will look for. This says that you have mastered the inpatient setting and the outpatient setting. Now, this exam is 4 hours long. This is a grueling, mentally and physically challenging exam. Mentally, in that you're having to go through, and physically, in that you will feel exhausted by the end of those 4 hours. You know, that test took me 3 hours and 52 minutes. I had 8 minutes left on the clock when I finished my CCS exam. So it is a bit of a challenging exam. It's like with any medical coding credential exam. But the CCS, it puts up quite a fight, because the CCS says that you have mastered inpatient and outpatient coding. Now, they used to have a set of a set of requirements in order to sit for the CCS exam. AHIMA has since lifted those requirements. Now they say that if you, it is recommended that you have experience, it is recommended that you've gone through classes, but they are not requiring you to have any prerequisite before you take the CCS. Now, here's the thing. If you have been through a really good program and you have been studying, it really is going to be up to you. A lot of people think, well, should I just skip the CCA? The CCA, there is nothing wrong with the CCA. And a lot of people will say, well, no one asks for it. That's garbage. That's garbage, and people know it. And people who think that they know are not looking at the job listings. I'm the one who looks at the job listings, guys. This is my channel. This is what I do. I talk about medical coding. I also look at the job listings. Medical coders are not always listed under medical coders. Sometimes they are listed under health information tech, health information specialist, medical records specialist, medical records tech. Sometimes they are listed under revenue cycle specialist. You know, even though I would think revenue would have to do with billing, but I have heard of some places calling their medical coders revenue integrity specialist, revenue cycle specialist. They have different colorful names. It's not until you get into the job listing description that you will see that there are the tasks of the medical coder. And that is when you will see the CCA being asked for. So don't discount the CCA. A lot of people will ask for the CCS because this says that you have mastered, you have experience, you are advanced beyond the basic, beginner level, intermediate level. You are advanced. That is what that CCS is saying. Some people will try to just go ahead and right out of the gate, you finish their program and sit for the CCS. Some people pass, some people do not. It has about an 80% average pass rate on that CCS. So, I mean, it has a pretty good pass rate. However, I mean, it's It is what it is. Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not so good. But I will try to pull up the statistics here. But really think carefully. If you're going to sit for the CCS, if you're going to bypass the CCA, although there's nothing wrong with you starting out with the CCA, it's still a good credential. I had the CCA for 13 years. I will always advocate for the CCA, particularly because the advertising or the publicity on the CCA is not always the best. And people think that they know. And I really dislike it when people from other associations or people who have other credentials, even other credentials with AHIMA, will trash talk the CCA when you have no idea what you're talking about. So that's the thing. You have to do your research. I have lived it. I have changed hearts and minds. That's what I did, and that's what I continue to do. I will always recommend the CCA because in order to pass the CCA, the entry level, this says that you not only know that outpatient setting, but you also know the inpatient setting, so you can find your way around. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? And I was able to get 4 really good paying jobs and outpace my peers too. So I'm just saying. But with the CCS, the pass rate on the CCS for first-time test takers, if I can get that to pull up. No, don't you pull up recertify. So the first-time pass rate for in 2020, year of the pandemic, there was 2,374 first-time test takers. 83% of them passed. So not bad. That's 83% first-time pass rate. Maybe they had good, really good schools. Maybe they just trained really hard. Maybe because it was a pandemic and everybody was stuck at home anyway, they had time to really buckle down. In 2020, for the CCA, there were 1,627 first-time test takers. 85% of those folks passed in the first try. So when it comes down to whether you should start off with the CCA or with the CCS, consider this. If you are going to just say, okay, well, I'm just going to start out, I'm going to pace myself, I'm going to do things right as far as I'm going to go with the steps, okay? Not that if you hit the CCS and pass it first, you're not going to steps, but there's still a lot for you to learn as a brand new medical coder. And with the CCA, they already know this person is a brand new medical coder. So they're going to have time to develop. Not that a CCS isn't going to have time to develop, but they are going to expect more out of you because you do have an advanced credential. Again, it's a gold standard of medical coding credentials. There's no other credential asked for more besides, of course, the degree designations, but that's something completely different, okay? But again, it's a rigorous test. Both of them are very rigorous. The CCA is 2 hours. The CCS is 4 hours. I suggest that when you're going through your program, that you really are honest with yourself and that you look at everything that you've been trained on. Take a look at these domains as far as like what they are testing on. You know, with the CCA, there it has 6 domains. It has 6 domains, okay? And keep in mind, it has a range of questions between 90 and 115, okay, that you got to get through in 2 hours. So 30 to 34% of this exam is clinical classification systems. So if that's your diagnoses, that is applying outpatient coding guidelines, applying inpatient coding guidelines, applying assigning physician coding guidelines, assigning inpatient codes, outpatient codes, physician codes, sequencing according to the healthcare setting, and consult reference materials, abstract pertinent information from medical records, incorporate clinical vocabularies and terminologies used in health information systems, and interpret healthcare data for code assignment. And then domain 2 is reimbursement methodologies. That is sequence the codes for optimal reimbursement. Obviously, if whatever is the first listed is going to be paid out the 100%, right? So as you have multiple procedures, they're going to only pay a percentage of the additional procedures in some instances. So that's why you want to make sure that the very first one is the most expensive procedure, so that one gets paid out in full and the rest of them are paid out as appropriate, you know. Link diagnoses and CPT codes. according to payer-specific guidelines, assign correct DRG, assign correct APC, evaluate NCCI edits, reconcile NCCI edits, validate medical necessity along with NCD and LCD, NCD, submit claim forms, communicate with financial departments, evaluate claim denials, respond to claim denials, resubmit denial claim to the payer source, communicate with the physician to clarify documentation. So that's all covered in that domain. Domain 3 is health records and data content. 13 to 17% of the CCA exam retrieve medical records, assemble medical records according to the healthcare setting, analyze medical records quantitatively for completeness and qualitatively for deficiencies. Perform data abstraction, request patient-specific documentation from other sources such as ancillary departments, physician office, etc. Retrieve patient information from the master patient index. Educate providers in regards to health data standards and generate reports for data analysis. Domain 4 is compliance, 12 to 16%. Identify discrepancies between coded data and supporting documentation. Validate that the codes assigned by the provider or electronic system are supported by proper documentation. Perform ethical coding. Clarify documentation through physician query. Research latest coding changes. Implement latest coding changes. Update fee/charge ticket based on the latest code changes, and educate providers on compliant coding. Assist with preparing the organization for external audits. Information technologies, 6 to 10%. Navigate throughout the EHR, electronic health record. Utilize encoding and grouping software. Utilize practice management and HIM systems. Utilize CAC software, computer-assisted coding software that automatically assigns codes based on electronic text, and then validate the code selected by the CAC software. Domain 6 is confidentiality and privacy, 6 to 10% of this exam. This is the final domain on the CCA exam. The task is to ensure patient confidentiality, educate healthcare staff on privacy and confidentiality issues, recognize and report privacy issues and violations, maintain a secure work environment, utilize passcodes, access only minimal necessary documents and information, release patient-specific data to authorized individuals, protect electronic documents through encryption, transfer electronic documents through secure sites, and retain confidential records appropriately, and then destroy confidential records appropriately. So you got to know about all of these things, right? And with the AHIMA exams, they are administered through Pearson Vue. Now, Pearson Vue is a testing site. It is an independent testing site, and they not only do the exams for AHIMA, but for other organizations as well. I've seen the ones for teachers in there, like the people that they're in there, they're for teaching. Some are for plumbing, some are for real estate. They really have a variety. So not everybody that's going in there is a medical coder. But it is a testing site. You do have to answer the question and move on. There is no flagging of any questions on any of these exams. You have to answer in order to advance to the next screen. Before, they used to allow it, but as of last year, they stopped doing it. And so, and it may have been actually the year before that, in the fall, they stopped doing it. And so nobody really knows why, but you know, that's just the way that it is. So if you're one of those ones who maybe thought of like strategizing, like, I'll just go back to the hard ones, that's not the way these exams work, okay? You have to be aware and conscious of the time that you have left, how many questions you've gone through. If you are sitting there like on the fence, you can't decide what question, how to answer the question, you really have to make the decision whether you want to blow the whole exam for one question, or if you want to just do your best and move on. Because guaranteed there's going to be a lot of things on there that you're going to know, right? Because you've been through the training. But there's going to be a few things on there that you may not have spent as much time studying. So That's something that you really need to think about. Don't lose the whole exam just because you got hung up on one question. It's not worth it, okay? But with the CCS, again, it's a 4-hour exam, and it has between 115 and 140 questions. And it has 4 domains, okay? So coding knowledge and skills is 51% of this exam. And regulatory and compliance is 29.1%, followed by coding documentation in 10.1%, and then provider queries at 8.9% of this exam. Now, the way they scale their scores with AHIMA is different. It is a 300 to get a passing score. And so when you think about that, you need to think about like, okay, well, if I only if I only need 300, I only need to. It's not that way. We are not tested by this many you get right or this many you get wrong. The way that AHIMA does their formulas is something completely different. But the score has to come out to over 300 in order for you to pass, 300 and over. So you really have to make sure that you are competent in all of these areas. And use the domains as your guide. Do you know these things? Ask yourself and be honest. Do you know these things? If you're not strong, that's where you need to dig your heels in. But for domain 1 is coding knowledge and skills. And this is applying diagnoses and procedures based on provider's documentation in the health record, determine primary and principal and primary diagnosis and procedure, apply coding conventions and guidelines and regulatory guidance, apply CPT HCPCS modifiers to outpatient procedures, sequence diagnoses and procedures, apply present on admission guidelines, address coding edits, assign reimbursement classifications, abstract pertinent data from the health record, and then recognize major condition and comorbidity MCC and condition and comorbidity CC. Domain 2 is coding documentation. 10.1% is review the health record to assign the diagnosis and procedure codes for an encounter, and review and address code health record discrepancies. Domain 3, provider queries. 8.9%. The task to determine if a provider query is compliant, and then analyze current documentation to identify query opportunities. And then domain 4 is regulatory compliance at 29.1%. So you would ensure integrity of health records, apply payer-specific guidelines, recognize patient safety indicators and hospital-acquired conditions based on documentation, ensure compliance with HIPAA guidelines, ensure adherence to AHIMA's standards of ethical coding, and apply the Uniform Hospital Discharge Data Set, the UHDDS. So these are all the things that are covered on the CCS exam. I do not recommend that if you are going to study for this exam, I do not recommend that you get the AHIMA prep books, because they don't cover what is on the test. And a lot of people will write me and say, well, Bleu, I spent a lot of money on this exam book and none of those questions were on the exam, because they're not supposed to be. When you think about what's on those exams, these are random and they're different for everybody. Nobody has the same test. We are not paper-based exams. We are computer-based exams with AHIMA. So that's when you're trying to decide which one to go to. With AAPC, they still use paper-based exams, meaning that you can go anywhere in this test and finish the sections that you want to, and then go back and finish the harder ones, because you're doing a paper-based exam. So as long as you keep up with where you're supposed to be, then you're fine. But when you're with AHIMA, you have one chance to get that answer and then move on. You have to decide whatever it is and keep going. If you get too hung up, you could miss the whole thing. And sometimes people want to be perfectionists, and this is not the time to be a perfectionist on these exams, particularly with AHIMA, because again, that clock is running and you have no time other than to sit there and juggle your books, get through your books, get through the questions. And so that's what I would suggest. If you feel strongly that you want to sit for the CCS, you feel confident enough, then by all means go for it. But there is absolutely nothing wrong with starting out with a CCA. and then getting some experience, getting in the field, working for a couple of years, and then taking a second run or another run or first time run actually at the CCS, and then getting it from there. Because they do recommend that you have at least 1 year of coding experience, applying codes, actively applying codes. So it's helpful. You know, I took the Ccsp and the CCS last year, and I passed them both on the first try. And, you know, having 13 years of experience before I took the Ccsp helped, right? Because, I mean, it's all outpatient. And when you have the CCA and you advance on to either the Ccsp or the CCS, that CCA will dissolve. You will not be able to carry the CCA and the CCS simultaneously. You will not be able to carry the CCA and the Ccsp simultaneously either. Because as soon as I passed my Ccsp, which was the first exam that I passed, after, of course, I passed my CCA, but as soon as I passed the Ccsp, my CCA was superseded. That's what they call it with AHIMA. And I have asked them before, you know, why can't you just let us carry that, you know, and they tell me no. And so that's the thing with AHIMA. They say that CCA is entry level. And once you advance on to the advanced mastery credentials, which the Ccsp is a mastery of the outpatient setting, and the CCS is a mastery of the outpatient and the inpatient setting. So once you pass that, then you will be able to just move on from there. If you pass the CCS, there's no reason for you to get the Ccsp, because then you're doubling the credential for what? You've already shown that you've mastered the outpatient setting with the CCS. Now, because I got the Ccsp first and then I got the CCS, I am able to keep both of them, you know, but I will keep both of them. Some people will pass the Ccsp and then let it lapse once they get their CCS, and that's how they carry on because they only need the one. I worked really hard, and so that's why I will keep mine. You know, it depends. It's a personal choice if you want to keep your credentials, but it's going to be more money. But you really have to understand what you're adding on. And with the HIMA, it's not so bad. I mean, it's reasonable what they charge to maintain these credentials. We did the math yesterday for AAPC. So, you know, let's catch up on all these comments. All right. Hi, Minnie. I'm doing great. Goddess says, if I choose to go through AHIMA, do they have classes like AAPC? Because I have also contacted the University of Phoenix. Oh no, I was told that I would have to take the medical records, which would lead to, oh my goodness, medical billing and coding. Oh no. I'll talk about that in just a second. Hi, Rebecca. Thank you for all the blue hearts. Hi, Cynthia. I sent an email earlier to your Gmail account. Okay, let's hold on one second. Please. Ellie, hi, thank you for the blue heart, Ellie. Clara, hi, Blue. How are you? Like the video. Thank you. Hi, Ellen. Get rid of this troll here. ID user. Troll alert. I like that. All right. Okay, I don't see anything in my inbox. Let me check my spam. Sometimes stuff shows up in spam. And it's weird because I'm like, if they have Yahoo, nope, I didn't get anything from you. I have new condos, Mr. Peter Owen, whatever, WordPress, and some other idiot named Richard Evans. So these are all junk mail. Is it possible that you had the wrong email? Because you spelled my name B-L-U-E, and my name is B-L-E-U, so it's Medical Coding with Blue, B-L-E-U. at Gmail. So that you may have sent it to the wrong email, but I didn't get it. When I get emails, I answer them right away. If I don't, it's because I'm at work or, I'm in a session. And sometimes that's been happening lately where people will email me and I will get back to you as soon as possible. So thank you for telling me, but I did not get an email from you, Cynthia. Goddess says, I do apologize for naming the school. Oh, no, you're fine. You're fine. But here's the thing with that. So it's very expensive, right? That school, you saw it, right? And of course, they're a for-profit school and they're going to want you to go through this other program. You do not need to. That may be a prerequisite for University of Phoenix, right? That you go through the medical records to get to medical billing and coding, but you don't have to do that. Now, AHIMA does have their 13-course bundle. You can go through AHIMA. It is a little finagly way to find it. Let's see, I think you have to go through the AHIMA store in order to find it, because I used to post the link to that course, and then it for some reason it was always broken, and I was always getting people complaining it's broken, they can't find it, and I'm like, okay, let me try to figure this out again, but it just didn't work, and so I was just like, come on, can we get it together? Let's see if I can pull up 13-course bundle. They do have the courses in here a la carte, meaning that you can pay for them by course, and you can do it that way if you want to, just pay for a course at a time, or you can pay for the whole thing, and then you have access for one whole year. I just put in, look for 13-course bundle. Why you make me sign in? I just want to ask a question. Can I do that? No, I gotta sign in. Excuse me. It says, why do you want the 13-course bundle, Blue? Here it is, medical coding and reimbursement online course bundle. Is this it? Is this it? Is this it? It is! Okay, so it is, this is it, isn't it? Yes, it is. Okay, so their course bundle, and I will leave this link in the chat right now. But it is $2,993.25 to go directly with AHIMA through their course. Now, I do have a couple of viewers that are going through the AHIMA course themselves. It's okay from what I heard, but it does not have a live instructor. So if you're looking for a live instructor, if you need that, you may want to consider going through this, but perhaps getting a tutor or a mentor to help you on those sticky parts that you don't really kind of understand. Or you can use my independent study guide to supplement your learning here. Of course, you don't have to go through these, but if you want to go through a formal program, let me go ahead and put this in. Why you take away? I'm gonna go ahead and put this in the chat box. Yes, I sent it from my Yahoo. Okay, I'll resend it. Okay. That's the product link for the 13-course bundle if you're looking to go to the AHIMA course, okay? But keep in mind this $29.9 what is it, 29? Where are we at? Oh, here we go. $29,993.25, right? $2,993.25. It does not include the books. So the books you have to buy separately. So this course includes access to 13-course self-pace, courses to hone your biomedical knowledge, build your health information management expertise, and apply medical coding concepts. Education to meet the CCA or the CCS exams, recommendations, or requirements. A certificate of completion from AHIMA upon successful completion of all 13 courses. Opportunities to accelerate your educational journey and save money by applying transfer credits toward a degree program. And then a 1-year AHIMA student membership to help build your network and access valuable career resources. Offer only eligible for non-members after purchasing product member number code, and then for the micro credential. And then AHIMA members may be eligible for a discount with participating institutions to continue their education and earn a academic certificate or a degree. Important notes. Individuals who've purchased any coding basics courses starting on January 1st, 2018 will be eligible to earn the medical coding and reimbursement micro credential. And I have no idea what that is. I should probably ask AHIMA because they talk about that a lot. I have no idea what that is. Upon completing all 13 courses, you are not required to repurchase this product. Once your purchase is confirmed, you can access all 13 courses for 365 days. Okay, so maybe they're not doing it a la carte anymore. They used to do it a la carte, and then they're not doing it a la carte anymore. Okay, that was my bad then. Please be mindful of your educational progress and allow enough time to successfully complete each course in the program. Separate purchases for required books may be needed for some of the courses in this bundle. Review individual product descriptions for these details. And then it talks about included in the kit is a course in anatomy and physiology, medical terminology, pathophysiology, and I can't say that word. YouTube doesn't like it. Healthcare data content and structure, healthcare delivery systems, reimbursement methodology, introduction to healthcare technology and information systems, ICD-10-CM for beginners, ICD-10-PCS for beginners, medical law and ethics, CPT coding for beginners part 1 and 2, and then medical coding practice and career preparation. So that's all that's included in that. And you're welcome, Goddess. Nurse says, just joining. I'm an RN with 11 years worth of critical care experience, and I would like to know the fastest way to learn what I need in order to do CDI work from home. I am just getting these like a rash. You trolls are like a rash. Hide user. Gosh, it's so annoying. How would you like if I went to your live and put those stupid letters on there, idiot? It's so annoying. All right, nurse. Here's the thing. You want to do CDI. You really do need to know coding first, medical coding. If you don't know medical coding, the CDI part's not going to make a lot of sense to you. Now, yes, they do say that nurses can do CDI because you're essentially looking at the documentation, you're finding those holes. Because you have that clinical knowledge and clinical background, it is going to be a lot easier for you to do that because you know, hey, they gave this medication, there's something missing here. You're going to be able to spot that, whereas the standard issue coder will need to probably have lots of experience in order to be able to start spotting those things. So what I say is this: you really do need to learn medical coding because you're not only working with the provider on bettering their documentation for a more fuller clinical picture, but you also have to work with the coders. The coders are going to be coming to you as a CDI and saying, okay, look, I have this problem. And if you don't really understand where the coder is coming from because you've never been in their shoes or you've never taken a course to understand what coders are seeing, then it's easy to say, no, that's fine. It's because of this or this or this, and not really kind of understanding where the coder is coming from. So what I would say, because I am all about the long way is the fast way. I'm not about the fast way is the fast way. The fast way is not the fast way. And it's not going to make you as effective as you could potentially be. So what I recommend is taking a course in medical coding and then getting over into CDI. Because then it's going to make a lot more sense to you, because then you're going to see what we see as coders. That's my advice anyway. So Goddess, you do have a choice on where you go. Because a school is trying to sell their prerequisite does not mean that that's what you need to do before you start in your medical coding journey. If you just want to study for medical coding, you don't need medical office administration. You don't need medical records training. You don't need any of that. You need medical coding and reimbursement. And now, even though you don't want to be a medical biller, there's a lot of people who say, I just want to do medical coding. I only do medical coding. I've only done medical coding in my career. But I do know about billing, but that's only because of my own research. When it comes to reimbursement, we are all tested on some form of reimbursement on these medical coding exams. So they do go together. We do have to understand about reimbursement in order to be an effective coder. So even though we're not actively billing, we still have to know it. And that would be the only thing. But you don't have to take a separate billing course. And billing is typically included in those course bundles when you are taking a medical coding program. They usually say medical billing and coding or medical coding and billing program, but yeah, it's all included anyway. Yes. Okay, good. But yeah, that's what I recommend. But yeah, you can go either way with AHIMA. You can start with the CCA, or if you feel like you got a lot of training, you got really good training, and you feel confident enough that you think you can take the CCS, then by all means, go for it. Nurse says, thanks. So if I would only need a medical coding course, do you have any recommendations going through AHIMA? That would be the only one that I would recommend. That's the only one I really can recommend. I also say that there's AAPC as well. AAPC has a separate coding training bundle, and it's on the outpatient side. If you're interested in checking AAPC out, they do have very upfront program listed on their website. You do not have to be certified through them, but if you want to go through the course, AAPC has theirs, AHIMA has theirs. That was the one I was just talking about. That's for $29.93, 25, and you get access to everything as far as like all of the 13 courses that you would have to go over. Before it was a la carte, so like if you with your nursing, you wouldn't have to take like medical terminology and all that stuff. It doesn't look like it's a la carte anymore. So yeah, because before it used to be like where you could select, and they don't have that anymore. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's a book for almost every single one. And it listed on here. So yeah, you got to keep that in mind for the additional cost of the additional books that you might need. But the link for that course, I left it in the description. Not the description, but in the chat. So you can check it out. Hi, Jennifer. She says, hello. I currently have my RHIA and I want to branch out to coding. I know I can sit for the exam with my current credentials, but I feel like I need a refresher course. Any recommendations? AHIMA. The AHIMA website. You can do self-study. You can. I mean, you don't have to go through a formal program. I do have the independent study video that lists all of the recommended books that I recommend. That if you want to go through self-study, you can. Especially because you've been a nurse, you have all of your background in medical terminology, anatomy, and patho. With you, Jennifer, having the RHIA, obviously that's a managerial side. It's great that you want to get that additional credential so that you know what you're doing with the medical coding side of the house. You can either go through the AHIMA 13 course bundle, or you can go with the independent study route. As far as like the other independent schools, a lot of them are for profit. We had one of the schools that was mentioned earlier, and they may try to stick you with other courses that you don't need, like medical records and medical front office. You don't need any of that. If you want to do just the coding, you can either go through AHIMA or you can go through AAPC through their coding courses. AAPC has theirs on the outpatient side and on the inpatient side, but you do have to pay to be a member, and you do have to pay all those additional fees. So that's something to keep in mind. But with AHIMA, they have their 13 course bundle, and you do have to purchase the other books that you need in addition to that course. And I'm going to like spitball is like another $2,000, maybe, give or take. It may not even be that much. But you know, you could go that way. It's still a fraction of the cost compared to these other schools out there that are training and they're trying to charge 15 or 20 or $30,000. You should not do that. That's too much money. And for two who have a lot of education already, you don't need it. You just need something a little extra to kind of help you. So either go the independent study route or go through AHIMA or AAPC with their coding courses. That's what I recommend. Any other questions? Let's see, what else can I say from the AHIMA website? Well, I guess I could talk about the Ccsp with AHIMA. Thank you so much for the info. Oh, you're welcome. And then Jennifer says, thank you, you've been helpful. Thank you. All right. So, let me pull this up here. All right. Oh, see a lot of comments coming in. Hold on. All right. CB. Blue, how many hours a day should a person study if they have a lot of free time during the week for certification? 6 hours daily. If you do not have a job and you are studying, you need to be studying for 40 hours a week. That needs to be your full-time job. If you have a full-time job, you work 36 or 40 hours a week, then I recommend that you study at least 20 hours per week. Now, there's also another thing out that says, you know, at least a minimum of 15 to 20. Now, the reason that I recommend 20 is because if you really want to take this seriously, you'll spend the time to do it. And at the end of the day, an hour extra over 5 days is not going to hurt you. And you have to work out a schedule. If you want to do it during the weekdays or when your family's away or whatever, you have to work it in whenever you can. If you are working full time, Blue, I just don't have the time. You have 30 minutes. If you're driving, if you have to go to your workplace, and let's just say that you have a 30-minute drive, 30 minutes to work and 30 minutes home. That's 1 hour you could be listening to something. Listening to JJ Medicine, right? JJ Medicine is a YouTube content creator, and they have a lot of medical terminology, anatomy, and pathophysiology videos, so that you can spend your time listening to. Studying does not necessarily mean that you have to be reading constantly, okay? So there's your daytime stuff, right? That's 1 hour, and over a 5-day a week, that's already 5 hours. Well, now you go home, and let's just say that you have a couple of hours to spare each night. Well, okay, again, that's going to give you a little bit more time when you think about it. So that's 15 hours you can do during the week. There's still the weekend, right? So just think about it. It's just something to go over. You know, it takes effort and it takes discipline to set yourself up on a schedule. But if you're spending a reasonable amount of time studying, and sometimes if you're tired of reading, you don't want to read, you don't want to do flashcards, then take your books, take each one of your books, your diagnosis book, your CPT procedure book, if you're taking an inpatient coding exam, your ICD-10 PCS. Take the time to go through each and every single page. Now, before you tell me, Blue, what am I doing when I'm flipping through these pages? You are familiarizing yourself with this book. You're getting comfortable with this book. You are recognizing where things are in the book. I recommend going through and doing that, because you may find things in here that you may have never have seen before when you're sitting there trying to study. And I don't recommend having your books either, because the book already has the answers. You have to know how to navigate the book, which is why I recommend flipping through each and every single page. Sometimes it may take you a couple of days, especially with this little monster right here. It may take a couple of days to get through a book like this, because you're having to flip each and every single page. But trust me, the benefits are knowing where everything is in the book. So that to me is worth the time to be able to do that. You should be reading your ICD-10-CM coding guidelines in their entirety once per week. If it takes you a couple of days, or you want to break it up over 3 or 4 days, that is totally fine too. You have to find the time to keep repeating those coding guidelines. If it doesn't make sense to you, it's okay. It's not supposed to make sense. It will make sense in time, but at least this way, if you get to a point, even when you're on your test and you have to recall a guideline, you at least know where to go. You're not going to panic because you've been through this book so many times that you're very familiar with it. You have to know what is covered in these appendixes, because these appendixes are designed to help you. There's a lot of medical terminology, and there's like prefixes, suffixes, and root words, which if you don't know medical terminology, that's what I recommend that you learn so that you can piece together words. But sometimes you'll find that there's a list of those, like commonly used prefixes, suffixes, and root words in these books. And so that helps too, because then you're not trying to overburden yourself, because it's already in your book. And you don't have to write all over your book. You don't have to mark it up and everything. You don't have to highlight. Although some people, it does help them. So if you need to highlight, that's okay. But I really don't recommend writing up in your books, because when you write all over your books, the book already has the answers. Why are you adding more to it? You have to learn to read the book. And you're not going to have time to read your own notes. So the time that you're investing writing all of these notes, you could have been flipping the page, looking at the book itself, looking at the index, getting familiar with the terms in the index, right? Same thing with CPT, same thing with ICD-10 PCS. And you're putting your brain on autopilot, but it's helping you, okay? It's helping you. So just keep that in mind, guys. It's something that you can do to set yourself up for success. Go through these exercises, and when you go through the exercises and you're going through these, you can time yourself. You can see how fast you're going through and looking at them. But trust me, if you've already been through the book, you're going to be able to navigate a lot faster, because your brain will be like, oh yeah, we saw that. Oh, it was in the front of the book. So practice, practice, practice. All right. I was wondering that myself. See, Roxy, I completed hopefully that answers your question, CB. Roxy says, I completed a medical coding cert in 2010, but it was all ICD-9 training. Due to the economy at the time, I couldn't find a job. What would you recommend to get certified? What would you recommend to get certified now? Do I recommend getting certified now? I mean, yeah, if you want to go back through a program, absolutely, yeah. You're talking to somebody who's biased in the field, though. I love medical coding, but I will say medical coding is not for everybody. Medical coding is not for people who quit. Medical coding is not for people who don't want to study. The study goes beyond the test. You have to continue to study. We have to report continuing education for our credentials every 2 years. With AHIMA, the first one, if you're getting a credential, the Cca, Ccs, or Ccsp, it's 20. You get additional credentials, it goes up. If you have the degree designations, it's a little bit higher. But if you're with AAPC, it's 36 continuing education units for one credential. So something to think about. But you have to be committed to it. A lot of people will get discouraged if they can't find a job right away. You won't find a job right away a lot of times. And it takes a lot of effort. It takes you having a really good resume, a really good cover letter, a really good attitude, being positive, and networking. and also taking alternative positions until you can work yourself into becoming a medical coder. Sometimes you have to start off in billing. Sometimes you have to start off in risk adjustment. Sometimes you have to start off in prior authorizations, something that's going to get you that exposure to medical codes, and then you can transfer over into coding. And sometimes you can start right into coding. It all depends on if you're able to pass those assessment tests, because passing a certification exam is one step. But now when you're in the big bad world, you have to be able to pass those assessment tests by these employers, and they're different. There's no way to prepare. There's no book to prepare for these assessment tests. You're literally going to get a grab bag. I've been tested on medical terminology. I've been tested on E&M. I've been tested on same-day surgeries. I've been tested on clinic encounters and diagnosis and procedures. And yeah, so you really have to be prepared for anything, when you are out there. But if you want to go for it again, by all means, I encourage people, if that's what you want to do, if you want to come back to it, by all means, go ahead and go, because they need medical coders. So that is what I would recommend. Mist says 8 to 5 is with breaks. Perfect. Ellie, Blue, I took your advice today, and I removed all the tabs, my book tabs. Yay! Thank you for all the blue hearts, Miss. Ellie says, you are right every time. You clip your book, you flip your book, you familiarize yourself with every page. Yes, very much so. Flip, I gotcha. Cynthia, I resent the email. Thanks for catching the spelling mistake. Of course, it's my name. But here, for your situation, when it comes to something like that, I'll just go ahead and say it. With getting vaccinations, guys, we're going to talk about this. We're going to have a serious sit down. Whatever your opinion is when it comes to vaccinations, I'm going to let y'all know this is the healthcare industry. These are the things that have been set in place long before this pandemic. Long before this pandemic happened, you had to have a Hep B shot, you had to have a flu shot, and all these other types of things. So there's a lot of things that were already in place before these things came about. So if you have an aversion to the vaccinations, you don't want to do them, everybody has their opinions, and I understand. But if you're wanting to get into the healthcare industry, health information industry, this is something that you're going to come up against. There are going to be hospitals who will require you to have it, otherwise they will not hire you. And there are some that they don't care, and it doesn't matter to them, but as we all see on the news, it's coming very few and far in between. This is a fact of life for us. This is a reality for us. So if you don't want to, if you are not wanting to get your vaccination, I'm telling you now, you have an even harder uphill to go to. And I'm just telling you, to be honest, don't dislike the video and don't dislike me just because I said it. The reason that I'm telling you is because that's what's going on out there. A lot of employers are already requiring it. Some places, that's just part of it. They have insurance policies for their facilities. They have to be able to do certain things, and they make the rules. Those are the things that they want to do, but you're getting into the healthcare field. And this is something that we all have to go over, because some places that is a requirement, and there is no going around it. And for others, if you have that exemption, that is something that's different. If you have a medical reason, again, but that's not all places. So, hi A, hi Blue, hi everyone. A says hospitals in my area require the vax even for remote workers. Yeah. And when I worked remotely for a level 1 trauma hospital, I was required to get a vaccination for the flu. And I'm an asthmatic. And I didn't like getting the flu shot, but now, I get the flu shot. If I need it, I need it. But I get it. you know, but it was required. Hi, Mist. um, but yeah, so that's something, if that's you, and you know, you are absolutely wanting to do this remotely, you still may run into the potential of having to have the vaccination even though you are working remotely. So there's almost, you know, in some instances, there's no way to get around it. It just depends. It really depends on the facility, but that's what we are required to do. So, like I said, I know I probably earned a few dislikes on that one. So y'all hit that like button. Because people will tend to dislike just because they don't like the things that I say. I'm giving you guys the real truth. Do you want me to sit here and you know, fluff it up for you? Oh yeah, you know, you can do this, you can do that. I'm not here to sell you guys anything. I'm here to bring you guys, this is the reality. This is what happens. So, all right. Okay. So the other credential that you could potentially sit for with AHIMA. Now, if you go through one of these programs, AHIMA or AAPC, and you decide that you're really good in outpatient medical coding and you're not ready for the CCA and you certainly are not ready for the CCS. But what about the Ccsp? So the Ccsp is a mastery of the outpatient setting. Now this one is also a 4-hour exam, and it has, okay, well, let's talk about the first time. That's right. So in 2020, there were 266 first-time test takers. 67% of them passed on the first try. In 2019, that percentage was 64%, and in 2018, it was 70%. I don't really know what happened there. When it comes to, my thinking, you know, CPT is so much easier than ICD-10-PCS, because ICD-10-PCS, you're creating that code, and those inpatient rules are so different from the outpatient side. But with the Ccsp, is a 4-hour exam. It is between 97 and 121 questions, total items. So it covers, it has 5 domains, and it has diagnosis coding is 16.5%. Given a scenario, review medical record documentation and accurately assign ICD-10-CM codes based on the documentation, apply ICD-10-CM conventions and guidelines to accurately code to the highest level of specificity. Procedure coding, 32.9%. This is all outpatient. Given a scenario, review the medical record documentation and accurately assign the CPT HCPCS codes based on the documentation. Given a scenario, interpret evaluation and management coding guidelines. Given a scenario, given a definition, apply appropriate modifiers. Apply CPT HCPCS guidelines to sequence procedure codes. Apply CPT HCPCS manual instructions to select correct codes. Apply knowledge of NCCI National Correct Coding Initiative edits and guidelines. Research is 7.6%. Differentiate and apply physician-based coding rules based on federal, state, and third-party guidelines. Determine appropriate primary authoritative source to determine correct coding. Compliance, 31.6%. Given a scenario, determine if a query is appropriate based on existing documentation and apply a non-leading ethical query. Evaluate medical records to determine documentation that is permissible to support code assignment. Apply ethical coding standards from the OIG, CMS, and AHIMA, etc. Ensure medical record signature requirements are met. Given a scenario, audit medical records for compliance and with coding and documentation rules. Apply knowledge of risk adjustment to ICD-10-CM. Demonstrate an understanding of HIPAA, privacy, and security regulations. Given a scenario, develop and deliver education for providers and ancillary staff. Identify a place of service, and given a scenario, ensure incident to billing guidelines are met where applicable. Revenue cycle, apply knowledge of claims development and filing processes. Apply knowledge of insurance response remittance advice, and then explanation of benefits, demonstrate an understanding of resource-based relative value scale, RVRVS. Don't ask me why I always turn those letters around. And then finally, link diagnoses to the procedure code correctly. So when I took this test, because I have 13 years experience, it was just about 13 years at the time of coding experience. I had an hour and 10 minutes, hour and 20 minutes left on the clock. So I had plenty of time left over on this exam. I got to this exam pretty fast. So, when I took the CCS, I was like, oh, I gotta hurry up, because CCS, like I said, it's rough. But yeah, so thanks for all the likes, guys. But yeah, that's the options that you have. I mean, if you want to take an outpatient exam, the Ccsp is the way to go. It is still asked for quite often. The Cca and the Ccs, I mean, it's up to you. But if you get the Ccs, obviously you don't need the Cca. And you can't carry that Cca once you get the Ccsp or even the Ccs. So really know what you want to do. Be prepared, prepare yourselves, and make sure you're flipping through your books. Take an hour to study at a time. Don't cram. Adults learn differently from children. So we're not going to learn the same, and study sessions and cram sessions are not going to mean the same thing to adults. If you are cramming before your test, the day before, it's usually not going to be a good thing. A very small percentage of the population can do well when they cram right before a test. But my recommendation is don't do it. If you are going to get ready to schedule your exam, take a couple of days off before you go and you take your test, because you're not going to learn anything new. All you're going to do is stress yourself out. You need to be as least stressed out as you possibly can when you go in and take these exams, because you have to be mentally ready for whatever they throw at you. So that would be my strong recommendation. But yeah, guys, look in your area and see and prepare yourself. I took 2 exams last year. When I give you guys my advice, this is the stuff that I did. This is stuff that worked for me. And if you say, well, tabbing works for me, Blue, and I want to tab your heart out then. But I will tell you that with AHIMA, the only tabs that you can use are the tabs that came with the book. Now, it's Pearson Vue that you got to go to these places to go take these exams. The AMA CPT manual comes with its own tabs, so you can use those tabs. That is okay. However, if you're making your own homemade tabs on your diagnosis book, that's a no-go. And I even had an instructor who got mad at me because I've been telling my students that all the time. Well, then you've been telling your students wrong, sir, because it's in the candidate hand guide that handmade tabs are not allowed. No loose papers, no sticky notes, no excessive writing. This is why I tell you guys, don't write in your books, But what about my notes? You're not going to have time to read your notes. This is my advice anyway. So does anybody else have any other questions before we wrap this up tonight? I got crickets. Yeah. Okay. All right then. I would guess I will go ahead and wrap this one up. I see a comment coming in. Desiree. Hello, Blue. Had to take a short break. Back to billing and coding studies. Hello again, everyone. Thank you for all the blue hearts. Well, welcome back. None at the moment. All right, miss. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. I told the audience yesterday, and for all the new people who are tuning in today, next month I will be going to a 4-night-a-week schedule. I will be in February. I will be going Monday through Thursday. Fridays are off, and those shows will be pre-recorded. So be prepared for that, guys. I'm not going anywhere. I will still be here, but I have to adjust my schedule. So please keep commenting, liking, sharing. You know, YouTube likes their shares, YouTube likes their likes. And it helps to push the video out, you know. So if you found it helpful, if you found it useful information, and then by all means, you know, hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. CB says, so if studying for 40 hours per week, how long before ready to take the CCS? It depends on you. How long are you studying? Did you go through a whole program? Goddess says, thank you for the information. Thank you for all the blue hearts. Or the Ccs-P. Good night, A. Hi, Antigone. Hope I said that right. I tell people, when you complete your program, at least take your exam within 30 days. No later than 90 days after you complete your program. But CB, I believe you're doing independent study, right? Or are you in a program? I believe you're in a. So you're doing independent study. Since you're doing independent study, it depends on how fast you're going through all of the information. You know, if you find yourself studying for the CCS, you know, doing 40 hours a week and, you know, for a whole month, then if you feel ready, like I said, you got to be like marathon ready. So I mean, I recommend really making sure that you time yourself, that you're going through those things, that you've read everything, because that's an exam that's gonna test you. It will test you independently studying. All right, so get to that 9th month, get to that 10th month when you've completed everything, then really start buckling down. I say between 4 to 6 weeks after you finish your program to study for your exam, and then test within the 2nd month, or you know, you can test within the 3rd month, but you still need to be continuing to study. So that would be, I'm thinking 6 months. You better be studying a lot more than 40 hours. You gotta be studying a lot more than 40 hours. If you're thinking that you're gonna fly through like that and get through diagnosis coding, CPT coding, and PCS coding, that's a lot. That's a heavy load for 6 months. And so that means you're already proficient on your medical terminology and your anatomy and your pathophysiology. So yeah, like I said, 9 months. 9 months. Don't try to rush through in 6 months. That's somebody that's already conditioned to that kind of study. You know, 9 months is palatable, because even though you pass this test, you still have to be able to pass those assessment tests, and that's going to be something completely different when you get out in the real world. I'm not trying to, you know, I'm not trying to discourage you, but I'm just trying to give you the real talk. 6 months is fast, and I always say 9 months is better. But if you think you can make it in 6 months, you know, go ahead. You can make it through in 6 months. Take a month to study then, and then see where you're at, and then schedule your test. You know, but just make sure before you go and schedule. I would prefer you went 9 months, but if you want to go 6 months, okay. Okay. So I think that's it. Yes. 9 months. 9 months it is. All right. I told another one. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Thank you guys for joining me. Hit that like button, subscribe, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.